Hello, welcome to the Royal Road School of Carmelite Prayer. I'd like to offer today the beginning of a three-part series based on the parable of the Prodigal Son. Part 1 that we'll look at today addresses the Prodigal Son and Carmelite Prayer. Part 2, the Prodigal Son and Teresa of Avila. And then Part 3 is a guided prayer based on the parable itself. So let's begin with Part 1, the Prodigal Son and Carmelite Prayer. Father Eli-Joseph uses the parable of the Prodigal Son to introduce silent prayer during the 2022 Lenten Retreat at the Carmelite Monastery in Broussey, France. This parable is not usually associated with Carmelite prayer, yet, as you will see, it contains all the elements of Carmelite or silent prayer. We will take the Prodigal Son as our master in prayer, who is like each one of us and is looking to return to God, the Father in the Holy Spirit. As you listen to an excerpt of the parable, notice how all falls apart around the Prodigal Son. His life goes from darkness to light as his attitude triggers a personal conversion, a return to the Father. Luke 15:11 through 32. The Prodigal Son. A man had 2 sons. And the younger son said to the father, "Father, give me the share of your estate that would come to me." So the father divided the property between them. After a few days, the younger son collected all his belongings and set off to a distant country where he squandered his inheritance on a life of dissipation. When he had freely spent everything, a severe famine struck that country, and he found himself in dire need. So he hired himself out to one of the local citizens, who sent him to his farm to tend the swine. And he longed to eat his fill of the pods on which the swine fed, but nobody gave him any. Coming to his senses, he turned within. How many of my father's hired workers have more than enough food to eat? But here I am, dying from hunger. I shall get up and go to my father, and I shall say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son. Treat me as you would treat one of your hired workers.' So he got up and went back to his father. While he was still a long way off, his father caught sight of him and was filled with compassion. He ran to his son, embraced him, and kissed him. His son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son.'" This parable explains everything concerning the history of man. Jesus gives us this parable to shed light on our situation today. Our lives have been marked by original sin that has pushed us far from God. In other words, sin has pushed us away from the interior life and intimate relationship that God has always wanted with man for all eternity. Yet man has lost his way by wanting to manage himself what God has given him. The prodigal son takes his fortune and moves away from life-giving relationships towards a life of disorder and death. He squanders all his money, forming bad relationships, such as with prostitutes, and also on relationships that just do not correspond to his deepest nature. Once all of his money gone, he would have problems with food. He's hungry, and he wonders how he's going to eat. He asks food of a man, perhaps the devil according to the tradition of the church, someone who would not raise him up, but rather push him down. Somehow the prodigal knew that the food offered was not good for him. How did he know? He knew because he had turned within himself, the fundamental movement in recollection. He turned from the exterior world to his inner world, the world of his soul, his heart, and his spirit. This movement of turning within initiated the conversion that will drive him to his Father's house to seek once again his Father's face. To find his Father's face, the prodigal son had to make an effort to recall through a deep intuition that he had once been conceived, loved, and nourished by someone. The face of his Father he had in his heart, in his being, is not yet the real face of the Father. To find the true face of the Father, he had to get up and then rise up. This rising up is a resurrection. He turned from death to life with God in his house. By going through two movements, first, the entering within himself, which brings about then a rising up, a resurrection. The prodigal will pass from dark or death to light or a new life. The movement of recollection begins within himself and ends in his Father's house. We have to make that voluntary effort to turn within to find the Father's house within. Our Father reestablishes a right relationship with him as children of God. If we are not in this house, God is not able to have an alliance with us. Man was created to be the Son of God, the only being to receive that grace. In fact, it is our primary vocation to become a son of God. It all starts with the movement of turning within or recollection, which is our part. We do not practice silent prayer to feel good, but rather to experience an interior existential crisis. What does that mean? It means a call to live more fully. In other words, to realize that the practice of silent prayer is really a matter of life and death for us. Those who decide not to turn within will end up like the prodigal son, eating anything, and end up malnourished. His soul will not be nourished by God's presence. And so it suffocates, it dries up, and it dies. I pray that grace for you. That is to realize that to practice silent prayer is a question of life and death. This prayer initiates a dynamic of life from finding the presence of God within. It profoundly nourishes the soul, which satisfies our first and our foremost vocation of being sons of God and living his life, which will make us then very happy. This path of prayer consisting of these two movements of first turning within, as with the prodigal son, and then getting up, allow us a new experience of God. the Father. It is in silence that you will have a new image of the Father. As with the prodigal son, the Father takes us in his arms and draws us close to him, close to his heart, and close to the Son and to the Holy Spirit. The early church fathers spoke of one hand being the Son and the other being the Holy Spirit. In other words, this new life of prayer brings us into the heart of the Trinity. It is my prayer that in your deepest self, you respond to the call to live more fully, realizing that you aren't living up to your capacity, that you thirst for God and that you seek to wake up in you that thirst for Him. I also hope that the practice of silent prayer will allow you to encounter with the Father that will uncover a new encounter with the Father that will uncover for you a new aspect of the Father's face, as it did for the prodigal son, to whom God showed both love and mercy. Amen. This is the end of part 1. Part 2 will follow, addressing the prodigal son in Teresa of Avila, and then again part 3 will offer a guided prayer session on the parable itself. Thank you.